Welcome back to New Rockstars. Is Deadpool and Wolverine gonna make Wade and Logan face everyone they killed? Is Hugh Jackman gonna have way fewer lines of dialogue in this movie than we thought? And could Kevin the Robot and perhaps She-Hulk be linked to the TVA's plot in this movie? Total Film published an amazing Deadpool and Wolverine profile, and we're breaking down what we learned, including who is Vanessa's new boyfriend?
Ooh, this is the Sneak Peek, the weekly show on New Rockstars where we look ahead of the future of fandom. I'm Jessica Clemons, here with my best friend in the world, Erik Voss.
Oh, hi, Jess. It's so nice to see you once again this week. And we're back talking about Deadpool and Wolverine because we're obsessed with it. And
Yes.
Total Film. Oh,
No
you
more.
geniuses.
No more talking about Blade for now. And hopefully,
Yeah,
well
hopefully.
wishes.
If we're talking about Blade, it means something bad has happened.
Yes.
So hopefully they can just find a new director and we can get back to just waiting for a Blade trailer. We're going to talk about this. Deadpool and Wolverine was profiled by the magazine Total Film. And everyone go out to your newsstand and just buy this issue because we want you to read the whole article. They did such a good job reporting it. They didn't confuse us with any weird jokes or speculations or turns of phrase. They just did a great write-up, and there's a lot of great photos in there, and we just got some great insights. So we're just going to break down some of the highlights that popped out at us when we were reading this. But again, go buy this issue of Total Film from your local newsstand or from your checkout counter, wherever you can find it.
Go to your Barnes and Nobles.
Barnes and Nobles, that they still exist, I think.
That's Borders. Borders is gone. Barnes and Noble
Borders is gone. We had Books A Million in Orange Park, Florida.
That's not. I don't think
Books A
that's
Million
a
still exist?
train of bookstores.
Well, it was a caboose by the time they were done. So one of the things that we learned was kind of a bit of a plot update. They teased some details. So here's this paragraph. It says, 6 years after Deadpool 2, we are reacquainted with our crimson-suited hero. He's proving to be useless at selling cars, hawking blind owls, Leslie Uggams, blood pressure meds to make rent, and his beloved Vanessa, Marina Baccarin, has a new boyfriend. But despite insisting to his pal Peter, Rob Delaney, that he's over the whole superhero thing, when the Time Variance Authority comes a-knockin', after just a few minutes with Matthew McFadden's TVA agent Paradox explaining how he is needed to protect the sacred timeline, etc., etc. So, we learn that this will take place 6 years after the events of Deadpool 2. 6 years? Quite a long time. And we learned that in this intervening period, Vanessa has a new boyfriend. So I want to pause here and ask Jessica, who do you think this new boyfriend is? Because it's Deadpool 3. It's gonna be someone interesting. Do we think, I'm gonna go through some options. Do we think it could be Rob Delaney's character, Peter? Has Peter snuck in there?
It could be, and that could be why they're bringing him into the franchise.
Yeah, I think
this is Rob from. No, wait, Rob.
This is Rob Delaney from Deadpool 2. So this is the guy who's just Peter who joined the X-Force.
I was thinking Rob McElhenney or whatever.
Okay, he's another option.
Yeah,
Rob McElhenney's playing a TVA agent in this movie. So do we think it's one of the Robs?
I think it is Peter. I think it is because he was his little last part of Deadpool 2 was make sure to give Domino my email, and he was like, I don't think she's your type. And then watch it be Vanessa, and he's gonna be like, "You traitor."
But he's like respectful.
Yeah,
he's like, you know what? You guys are happy together.
Yeah,
I can't deny that.
He's very sweet. He's also, I feel like after bringing Vanessa back, she's gonna be like, I want something calm, and just like a normal person, and it's absolutely that guy.
Well, could the perfect boyfriend be Vanisher from Deadpool 2, played by Brad Pitt, and that Brad Pitt could be in this movie?
No.
No.
No, his bit is that he's invisible.
Ryan Reynolds is just kind of this sex symbol, right? One of People Magazine's sexiest man alive. So the only way to really like beat down on him, even though he is a very ugly, scarred version of himself, is to just have someone who could trump him as a Hollywood hunk that Vanessa has moved on to.
Yeah, more reason to be Rob Delaney. More reason. The funniness of that. But I see where you're going.
There's another option, and obviously I've just been like over watching too many episodes of Welcome to Wrexham this season, but Will Ferrell has showed up several times, and Will Ferrell would be, he was just on The Boys, and I feel like that would be a fun cameo, kind of like in The Other Guys, when he was like, he had the super hot wife, but just wasn't into her. You have Will Ferrell come in here, and it's just like, that could be a super fun scene if Will Ferrell just shows up at this party from the kitchen. Oh, hey guys.
Yeah, and the bit could be that he's old, because Deadpool looks old now. with that toupee, that weird hairline. Yeah, I could see that. Still more for Peter. More for Peter.
A couple other options, a familiar Marvel face, Kevin Feige, Paul Rudd. Do we think, like, Kevin Feige could just cameo here as their new boyfriend? Because he does say in the footage, like, Feige says that we can't mention drugs here, and he might even be referring to Kevin Feige, who's somewhere else at this, like, surprise birthday party.
I would love that. I would like, that'd be a very funny reveal. I think that reveal would come later in the movie. Mm-hmm. It could be like, he never shows up to the events. She doesn't feel comfortable bringing her boyfriend, and then the boyfriend is Kevin Feige.
I think Kevin could show up in this movie just in a different way. I'll get to it later. And then Jason Sudeikis also showed up in some of the Welcome to Wrexham stuff, Ted Lasso himself. But I'm wondering if her new boyfriend could be a footballer. Could be David Beckham. Could be, we know Ollie Palmer's going to be in a different part of the movie. Could it be Paul Mullen from Wrexham? Because he's the other kind of, like, big star striker on that team. Mm-hmm. Like, and then, like, there could be just a song where they have to sing, like, "We got Mullen," and they just sing, like, the song that all the Wrexham fans sing.
God forbid they get that much into the show. It's just a cross promotion for Welcome to Wrexham.
Yeah, like, Paul, because, I mean, it would just be, like, I think a lot of viewers are like, who is this? But it's just like, oh, an English footballer. And, like, she's just now dating a football player.
Yeah. I'm still here for Peter.
But I think one big standout piece from this article that both Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds went into this interview clearly aligned on, that they wanted to talk about, is how this film is going to embrace the themes of shame and masculinity, and maybe these characters looking back at their past legacies and feeling some shame over it, whether when it comes to how violent they were, some of the jokes maybe Deadpool made, the crassness, or just really the people they killed. And I wanted to ask you, like, or let me read this part of the article. He says, despite closing the book on the character in 2017's mournful neo-Western Logan, Jackman was tempted back for Wolverine's first official MCU film, in part because of his long-standing friendships with Levy and Reynolds, but also from a desire to mine new depths of the character. The Australian movie and theater star has played a wide breadth of roles in musicals, dramas, and thrillers over the years, but the hyper-masculinity of Wolverine is a stark contrast to his own all-singing, all-dancing reality, and he tells Total Film that explorations of masculinity are something I find fascinating. In Australia, our culture does give different flavors, but actually I think the more interesting thing is how connected it is. And where I connect with the character is how in both North America and Australian cultures there is the shame. And then Ryan Reynolds, they asked him, when it comes to the shame that accompanies the pressure to adhere to masculine expectations, he adds that hopefully there's more in the character Wolverine than there is in me, but there are repressed feelings there, right? There are all these different things I feel underneath. There is anger, there are all sorts of things that I'm obviously tapping into playing the part, so I find this role to be a gift, and it's clearly something cathartic and healing for me. I know that I'm being a little open here, but I think that's the real strength of these characters in comic book movies, and that through wish fulfillment, it's allowing us to collectively look at what's underneath.
Oh, interesting. Oh my God, Deadpool's gonna have depth.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they wrote this movie in the wake of Peacemaker season 1.
Yeah.
Like, because that was, I think, a very influential series when it came out in early 2022. And I think it was hard to do the same kind of superhero story of just, like, jacked, like, weightlifter guys beating people up, making the same kind of jokes. And I feel like that broke the norm in such a way to where now Ryan Reynolds is like, I have to come about this differently, and I have to kind of mine this idea of what it means to be a hyper-aggressive, hyper-violent superhero. And I can't do that in the same way with this third film as I did in the second and first films.
It's such an interesting jump to immediately come to that conclusion, because we know you as, even the Christmas special, it's like we know you for just being the comical, like, funny guy out. So, but I guess every third movie has to be, like, as dramatized as possible. Like, even with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, it was much more dramatic than the first two were, because they were closing it. Same with, like, Thor 3. So maybe that's where
Yeah.
they're going. They're like, since this is our last Deadpool movie, I put quotes around last because they could do a Deadpool 4, easy. But I think they're trying to be like, you're not going to see a Deadpool 4 for a long time. You're going to see me cameoed in other things going forward for a bit.
Yeah, I think honestly, this is both the actors trying to take a bit of accountability for what might be a perception out there that some of the marketing might be. People are going to get mad that I'm even bringing this up. That some of the marketing and some of the history of his relationship is just this idea of a bromance, and that now in 2024 we don't look at bromances the same way. That there might be people out there who just view it as just a tad bit homophobic if the butt of the joke is that these guys just have romantic feelings for each other or are flirting. And I don't think that's the way Ryan Reynolds means to come off at all. And I think if you watch the Deadpool films, I think he is ahead of the joke in that regard. But I think he just wants to clarify it in this article that, like, no, we're going to look at who these people are in their hearts and realize that, yes, it's okay for Deadpool to be pansexual and to just be attracted to everyone. And I don't think we're making fun of it, that we're embracing a deeper component to the character here.
I think that's fine. I think approaching it too much will then set them off to a weird start because, I mean, I didn't have this, or I'm glad that they're separating and talking about it, but once he talked about all the sexual stuff that he experienced with Vanessa, I was like, oh, he's very sexually fluid and open. So I didn't really think too much about it. But if I get it, because this movie is definitely a movie where I'm like, yeah, I would love to watch these two main characters have sex, but they're not going to do that. So I think, and Deadpool's going to make jokes like that throughout the entire movie. So it's okay to like approach that.
This next idea is related to this because Ryan Reynolds really doubles down on this idea of shame and masculinity. Here's the quote. Ryan Reynolds explains to Total Film that despite one half of the film's double act being an embodiment of old school brooding masculinity and the other being a pansexual motor-mouthed violent pervert, they have more in common than a supernatural ability to heal. He says, quote, they're both in a deep, internalized routine of shame where so many different maladaptive coping mechanisms come out, Reynolds says. For Deadpool, it's using humor to deflect anything that might render him vulnerable. And for Wolverine, it's really a sense of masculinity and violence. But beyond the shame spirals at their cores, Reynolds sees a contrast in expression. For Deadpool has always been very feminine, and I find that to be very freeing. The actor says, I'm not bound by any constraints of that sort of traditional to toxically masculine portrayal of a superhero. I found this to be interesting, Jessica, and I wanted to ask you, what do you think, ultimately, Wolverine is ashamed of, and what do you think Deadpool is ashamed of?
Well, I think we've gotten hints of Wolverine's little thing in the trailer where they're like, this man has destroyed his entire world, and he's here. And then we see him in this desert plain that looks like he's just been like taken there or abandoned there, or it could be his world that he somehow indirectly or directly is in the tandem of destroying. But from what we've seen from Deadpool, I can't really tell. And the part that makes it really hard is that at the finale or the ending of Deadpool 2, he got the cables contraption that let him just go and redo things. So I don't know what they're referring to, unless him going back in time is what alerted the TVA, and now he's ashamed of like maybe making a ripple effect that's going to destroy the entire world. That possibly could be it.
I think like what we're gonna find in this movie is that like Deadpool might be ashamed of idolizing Wolverine so much, and Wolverine might be ashamed of setting a bad example. Like, Wolverine is going to be depicted as this, like, old school hero from the older generation, and Deadpool is just trying to follow in his footsteps as, like, I'm going to do that in my own way, but he is the old guard, he's the old dog, he's like, you know, I'm the young pup, and I want to try to follow in his footsteps, and then, you know, Wolverine's just like, no, I'm not a hero. Why are people trying to emulate me?
Yeah, I guess it's like, how would he... It feels like it'd be, which would make sense, it'd be just like the second movie where the boy was like, I want to be like you. And Deadpool's like, you don't want to be me. I'm not good. Yeah, I could see him looking up to Wolverine. I think it's more that they just both share different views of what they actually have done. And that's something that I think is a great thing to tackle in, especially with men, is that if they feel like they're the product of what went wrong when they didn't really have anything to do with it. Either subconsciously they're like feeling like they're the reason for the problem, or someone told them they were the reason for the problem, and they're taking it into their own account and being like, oh, I destroyed my world. Like, if Deadpool did do a ripple effect that will destroy the world, he's gonna be like, I need to do whatever it takes because I'm gonna destroy my entire universe. And Wolverine's like, I've already destroyed my universe and there's nothing you can really do once you already put it in the timeline. So I see them both suffering in that and then like finding weird ways to cope with it. But maybe Deadpool is like, no, there's a chance I can still fix mine. I just need to learn what you've done to fuck up yours.
I like that idea a lot. You know, one thing that this article doubles down on that we've sensed from other articles and other interviews is how much this movie's going to feel like planes, trains, and automobiles. Not just in the travel, road trip kind of vibe, but just really the relationship between Steve Martin and John Candy. Yeah. And even this article referenced what I mentioned in the video, we might see a gag in this movie. Those aren't pillows! Ah! Which is kind of, you know, looking back on Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, I think the joke still works, but it has a different feel in 2024 when it comes to this idea of, like, homophobia and, like, ew, gross, two guys spooning together. But I think Deadpool, as like a proud pansexual in 2024, might not have a problem with it. But Logan might be this old guard from the aughts that were extremely openly homophobic in a lot of these movies and might be yucky, gross, you know, about it. And Deadpool might be like, listen, you need to update the way you talk about these things, Logan. We've partnered with Geology to bring you the best skincare products we've ever used and to bring us the best skincare products we've ever used. It's a win-win for your skin and our skin. Geology's products use just a handful of powerful, proven ingredients that have been trusted by dermatologists for decades, which is probably why Geology is a 32-time award-winning skin, hair, and body care company recognized in Men's Health, Oprah Daily, Hypebeast, Birdie, Esquire, and GQ. Geology can help you fight acne, reduce oilness, prevent wrinkles, combat dark or puffy under eyes, have smoother, hydrated skin, and target signs of aging. And if you don't know where to start, Geology can create a simple and effective skincare or hair care routine for you. All you got to do is take a quick 30-second quiz. And right now, Geology is giving our audience a $50 1-month skincare sample set for free. All you got to do is pay for shipping. And if you decide to add anything on, you'll get 50% off that add-on. So what are you waiting for? Use code NewRockstars100 and grab 100% off your personalized skincare trial set, plus an additional 50% off on add-ons. Just click the link in the description or go to geolog.ie/rockstars100 to get started. So another quote from this article, Sean Levy offered some insight into why Marvel might want him for Avengers 5. So this article says, while Hollywood history is littered with tales of hardship in the name of achieving greatness, Levy is quick to clear up that's not the case here. Quote, I've done like 15 movies and my God, so many stars are assholes, he says. But the ones like Ryan, who are every bit as nice, hardworking, and thoughtful as you'd hope, are such a treat. Many all-time classics have had infamously tough sets, but for Levy, quote, I don't believe art needs to be generated out of torment. Clearly not being an asshole is working for this team, with Levy now set to solidify his place in the big leagues and follow up his MCU film with a Star Wars one, and as Total Film goes to press, he's being linked to the next Avengers movie. And recently, Jess, you and I talked about this, like, why is Levy the guy for the job for Avengers 5 and potentially Secret Wars? It's just because he can handle all these egos and just set like a calm, stable set where bad things don't happen and people don't get hurt.
Yeah. It's unfortunate to be like, that is truly it. Some of the things aren't like because of the scripts or like what's happening in the plot. It's mainly just like you're dealing with a lot of people. Yeah. A lot of people that have been to the gala, the Met Gala, and they all have different schedules that they think are more important than the others. And it's like, okay, we need someone that's handled at least 15 people like this minimum.
Well, wait till we find out that Sean Levy, like, breaking news TMZ, 40 bodies found in Sean Levy's guest house.
Sean Levy's like, I can't stand it. Did Sean Levy do Oceans? Who did Oceans?
Like Ocean's 11? That was Soderbergh.
Because that person could probably do this movie too.
Oh, I'm sure he could handle all those. Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I sense that some expectation management coming in these interviews from the article, I think they want us to be acquainted with the fact that Hugh Jackman might not have a lot of speaking lines in this movie, at least in the opening act.
Yeah.
And I think people are like going in expecting like, oh, it's a Hugh Jackman movie. I think he's not going to say much. Listen to this part of the article. Levy is thrilled to be asked about the challenges of having an odd couple made odder by only one of them having his face on view. Quote, I could literally do an entire interview about the physical virtuosity of Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool because trust me, nobody sees quite how brilliant it is because he makes it look so intuitive and effortless, Levy says. You have this gruff, often non-verbal Wolverine against essentially circus clown physical performing. Most children growing up dreaming of being superheroes would not necessarily be hoping to be the boiled testicle hypersexual clown one, but Reynolds is also happy to take those descriptors. So what I find interesting about this is the fact that they shot this during a writer's strike and were not allowed to do punch-ups. And then later in this article, they talk about how much they relied on ADR because Ryan Reynolds is masked for a lot of it. And that after test screenings, they did a ton of punch-ups. And I think they knew when they were shooting this, they would be able to punch up his lines. And they started shooting with like an incomplete script draft because they knew that these strikes were coming up. And they're like, okay, we're going to punch it up later. He'll be masked for a lot of it. We can have Ryan say anything, but they were not able to do that with Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
And they just relied on him being such a physical presence that, and just allowed him to do interesting stunts that he may just be kind of quiet. And a lot of his acting is just going to be with like his reaction shot or his like, ugh. And he's not going to be talking a whole lot.
Yeah, 100%. Agreed. Also, it is Wolverine. That's what Wolverine, he broods. He's a brood.
Yeah.
Broods. He broods. He broods. Broods with a D, not a T. He broods.
Yeah.
And from what the trailer looks like, it looks like he's reeling from something he did.
Yeah, but what's just interesting, if you go back and watch those early aughts X-Men, especially the first X-Men, they give Hugh Jackman a lot of the one-liners. Like, he's the one who says, you actually go outside in these things. Like, he calls Professor X Wheels. Like, he has a lot of jokes that they give him.
More reason for the theory that he's not at fault. I don't believe he's at fault, but more reason to the theory that he's at fault for what happened to the rest of the X-Men in his universe for this movie. Because look at how cheerful he is around his own kind, like his people, the people that he knew. He's willing to make those one-line jabs, to drink a beer and be like funny, and now he's just dead on the inside. There is no reason to exist in this movie for him. That's what it looks like.
A little secret for you guys viewing on YouTube. Is there currently a baby in my lap? I'll never say, because this kid will not appear in YouTube videos right now. But you might hear a baby during this. And my posture and my seating position might be weird.
Yeah.
But we're going to just keep moving on. The last part of this article that I really want to single out is the possible She-Hulk connection of it all. Because this surprised me when I read it. I didn't realize this until now. The executive producer that Marvel assigned to this project is Wendy Jacobson, and she's relatively new to the executive team that Kevin Feige oversees. She worked on She-Hulk before this, and then she's really credited with the final 4 episodes. So she kind of came in the middle of She-Hulk production when they were doing a big revision, if you remember that,
She's
in
the
the
blonde
spring.
lady?
Yes,
Yeah.
she's blonde, and she, the way I said she's blonde, no, it's just this is what she looks like. And she came from producing a lot of like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson action movies, and then joined the Marvel executive team, and then she really, as the writer and director of She-Hulk, were figuring out how to restructure the back half of that season. It was really Wendy Jacobson who was like shepherding that process through the studio end. So that means when Daredevil comes in on the show, how wild that episode gets, how like horny that episode is, and how it was like the first time the MCU was going in those places. And then the talks about the Sokovia Accords of it all, the idea of Jennifer breaking the fourth wall through the Disney Plus loading screen, and then walking around the Disney lot in Burbank, and then meeting the Kevin robot. So Wendy was in the room for all of that. And she had some interesting quotes here. She says, but in the cinematic universe where everyone is beautiful and a few people are horny, Deadpool is an outlier. Jacobson Jacobson has worked in the MCU on She-Hulk and is a long-term collaborator of Dwayne Johnson, who has a noticeably chaste filmography. She said, I did Skyscraper, Rampage, and San Andreas, Jacobson says, so I have a lot of experience with that kind of traditional masculinity heroism lane, and it was just really exciting to work on this hypersexual Deadpool because it was just so different. What's more, Deadpool's brazen kink isn't just limited to him, and even something wholesome, Peter reveals some truly astonishingly piercing choices, to which Levy can only say, it's always the quiet ones. So that's why I think you might be right that Peter might be the one with Vanessa, because we're going to see a lot of Peter in this movie.
This article makes me feel like I'm going to watch an hour and a half long version of The Boys.
Doesn't it?
I was like, oh, how much sex is involved in this? There wasn't that much sex in the other ones. It was just that quick 12 months montage with Vanessa and him making jokes.
The calendar girl montage. Yeah.
And him making jokes. So I'm like, damn, how much sex is involved in this movie?
Yeah. There's another paragraph related to this. It says the fourth wall breaking means that Deadpool can stare out at the audience and crack jokes about movie executives, actors, and even the audience itself, just as She-Hulk did in her Disney Plus outing. But Jacobson points out this is not a gimmick, as, like in She-Hulk, Deadpool breaking the fourth wall is so ingrained in the publishing history and who these characters are. Reynolds explains that it means Deadpool also really gets to be the audience, and one thing I never let go of working with Hugh is I'm genuinely his number one fan. So I think what they're hinting at is that whole scene in the vault in the She-Hulk finale, where they talk about the delays or like how different like the delays of the X-Men and how like editors had to be sequestered over on Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and you heard the Wakandan drum, and it was like some real swipes were taken at the way Marvel Studios produces their projects. And I feel like that is what's going to continue. Feige's going to get called out, and I wanted to ask you, like, could they really get like crazy and like talk about the firing of some of these executives, or the fact that like some of them have left and jumped ship, or the fact that like the issues with Blade getting delayed, or Jonathan Majors getting fired?
I think they can. I think they can make jokes at Blade, because that's true. We have to still remember at the end of the day, this had to be greenlit by Disney. So Disney probably does not want you, like WWE, to mention any of their legal battles.
So I wanted to ask, do you think that this show, because we're wondering what is going on with the TVA, and could we get a link between the TVA and the fact that like Paradox's Video Village shows things from Welcome to Wrexham's Emmy acceptance speech that already kind of breaks the fourth wall? Is this corner of the TVA going to connect to Kevin the Robot on the Disney lot in the Marvel Vault? And we're going to learn of some kind of like coup that happened from an algorithm coming from Disney corporate.
I can now see Kevin make an appearance and doing it to this like little scale degree. I also would like that quickness of him going to talk to Kevin, come back, and the TVA is like, you have this mission. He's like, F it, no use in doing it. I just talked to Kevin. We're not doing it anymore. But I could see that coming into play.
That's why I think like this movie is going to just give us a term for what it means to have a character breaking the fourth wall. They're just going to explain what that means in the MCU, because if you don't explain it, it's going to make it harder for Deadpool to just fit into places like Avengers 5 and Avengers Secret Wars. I think we just need to identify, I've talked about he could be a Nexus being, he could be a paradox, like even the term paradox, and then we could say he is that, and Jen Walters is that, and that Wanda Maximoff was that when she broke the fourth wall to look at us, that like certain characters can just see the audience, and we need a term for that if we're going to understand how Deadpool's going to fit into the MCU going forward. Well, we want to thank Total Film for this amazing article, and the writer of the article, Layla Latif. Go to your nearest newsstand. There's a lot of stuff in this article that we didn't talk about in this conversation that you really just need to read the whole article and purchase a copy of Total Film to appreciate. Well, let us know in the comments below what you're watching this week and your thoughts on Deadpool and Wolverine. Hey, we made it through this episode without me complaining about the Acolyte and Star Wars fandom. Isn't that great? Oh boy. Yeah, we all spent way too much time thinking about how old Ki-Adi-Mundi is and when he was born. Who cares? Hey, comment down below about anything else. Follow Jessica at Lulu_Clemons. Follow me at EA Voss. And subscribe to New Rockstars, all 3 channels on our network, for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye, Jessica.
Bye.